Welcome to the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast, your guide to understanding how to get out of the Wall Street rat race and start your own mailbox money lifestyle. Now, don't let these handsome Southern draws fool you. These financial minds are teaching our country to enhance savings, increase cash flow, and create passive income, all without the help of Wall Street. Are you ready to break through? Now here are your hosts, Russ Morgan and Joey Murray.
Welcome. This is the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Your host, Joey, the Italian Stallion Murray, joined as always by Russ, the Idea Guy Morgan. Well, Russ, I feel kind of bittersweet, man. Like your 401 lake house is coming to a close.
We are. We're closing the chapter on the house that we bought last July, a little over a year ago, man.
That's crazy how fast that ended up being.
Well, I mean, I bought that house last year we did a blog on the 401 lake house comparing a traditional 401k to a lake house. And we'll actually have to do a whole new case study on this, but you can go back, you can research the YouTube video we did on that. But that was a wonderful place for us personally over the last year and a half, especially during COVID, for us to stay down there for 6 weeks.
No doubt.
And just there was a lot of conversations that happened down there with my daughters and Betsy in particular. And here's one I wanted to share today because I think it's pertinent to our discussion. Betsy is my 10-year-old, and she's definitely going to be the entrepreneur of the family. She is always thinking money. She was the one I've talked about on the podcast before where she had watched an old video I did and was taking notes and then came up to me and was like, "Dad, I want to know how I do these things so that I don't end up broke." Right? She's the one when my wife left her job as a dentist and we were getting ready to go out to dinner. She was like, "I don't think we should go." I'm like, "What do you mean we shouldn't go?" She's like, "Well, Mom doesn't have any money, so I don't want us to be broke." Like, I don't want us to lose our house. Like, her brain is like thinking of money. So she's also the one the other day, I think I shared a video in our community of her winning $100 for being able to hold onto a bar for 2 minutes.
Like just hanging from a bar, like a pull-up bar.
Yes, just hanging from a pull-up bar for 2 minutes. She won $100. So she had already started like thinking of all this things. She bought 30 pairs of earrings for $1 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was on the way to buy $40 worth of walkie-talkies.
Okay.
And we're in the car and she's telling me about how she wants to spend her other $30. And I looked at her, I said, "Betsy, you remember when we played the game Cash Flow for Kids?" Joe, you've played the game Cash Flow for Kids, right?
Oh, yeah. It's a fan favorite around the house.
And so I asked her, I said, "Betsy, do you remember what an asset is in the game of cash flow?" And she was like, "Ooh, I'm not certain." I was like, "Well, what about the doodads?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah, that's the things that took money out of our pocket." I go, "Okay, then what do you think the assets were?" And she goes, "Oh, that's the things that put money in our pocket." Bingo.
Exactly.
Right. And I was like, "Betsy, what do you think these walkie-talkies and earrings and other things you're wanting to buy are?" And you can see the light bulb went off.
The face just starts drooping.
Yeah, the light bulb went off and she said, "Doodads." I was like, "Mm-hmm." Her immediate response to me, Joey.
Yeah.
"How do I get some assets?" She's like, "Show me how.
Pull me by the asset store. I'll go ahead
And
buy
she has asked now twice, "When can she come up here? Mom, when can I get out of school for the day so I can go up to Dad's office and learn how to get assets?"
Man, I mean, I'm just getting chills right now.
Well, I was trying to play this out with her because I wanted her, even a 10-year-old, to understand this. And I continued on. I said, have you ever heard the fairy tale? I don't know if we'd read this to her. Maybe you've read this to your girls. The fairy tale about the goose who laid the golden eggs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I said, "Well, Betsy, if you want to spend something, should you kill the goose or spend the eggs that the goose lays?"
Well, obviously spend the eggs.
Right. Because if we kill the goose, we no longer have the eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way we think about money, or don't think about money, that we should, is that a lot of us, we put money off to the side for the purpose of what?
to spend it.
of spending it.
Yeah.
We save to
Save to
spend.
spend. Yeah,
That-
exactly.
but that's not what the richest man of Babylon talks about. The richest man of Babylon is talking about never spending our gold, letting our gold go to work. And if we're going to spend anything, we spend what it produces.
Right.
And I think that she, even at the age of 10, is getting that. And I think, that spirit of producing, being a creator, and that kind of leads us into the discussion today. Our guest today, Chase Maher, he's got a podcast. What's it called, Joey?
The Life Worth Chasing.
Life Worth Chasing. And in this interview, he describes how he never fit in.
Yeah, he's a real estate investor who is thinking differently. He's thinking about, well, I love to surf, I love to snowboard. He shares a little bit more about what the life he's trying to create encapsulates. And it really comes down to, I want to buy the assets that create the lifestyle, not have a job that I spend down for my lifestyle.
Well, and he told us kind of like, I feel like Betsy will probably never have a corporate job. He says it never fit in. He never did that. And he found ways to create assets to then create a life worth chasing. And I think that is a really cool thing. If there's one thing that I want for you and I to do, is to create a little bitty part inside of our community for dads just like us to be able to show their kids how they can create assets. So then the assets will produce the cash flow, as we're always talking about.
That's right.
And the cash flow is what you can use to go buy doodads with.
That's right. If you feel like that person that kind of just, doesn't quite fit into that corporate role, and you're wanting to learn more ways to do exactly what we're talking about, you need to tune in to this week's episode. Let's dive in with Chase Maher.
Are you looking for ways to implement ideas, get exposure to new ones, and be surrounded by people on the same journey as you? Joey, where can they go to do that?
Go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/community. You can join for free today. Welcome. We have our distinct guest today, Chase Maher, joining us. Chase, so glad to have you, man.
What's up, fellas? I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah, Chase, thank you for coming on. We're interested to hear your journey. You've got the typical entrepreneur spirit, the one who didn't want to always work the corporate 9 to 5. You started at a young age. As we were talking a little bit pre-show, I was really interested to hear how you learn from your parents' entrepreneurship. So Chase, for those who don't know you and don't follow you with your own brand and your own podcast, give our listeners just a taste of who you are and what you're about.
For sure, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. So my name's Chase Maher. I live in San Diego, and I'm a full-time real estate investor. And so I flip houses. I buy rental property. Run a podcast called the Life Worth Chasing podcast, teaching people how to invest in real estate, how to make smart financial decisions, how to budget, how to pay less taxes, and just how to invest for the future so that they don't have to work forever. I hear you on the corporate 9 to 5. I actually never had a corporate 9 to 5. I prayed to, whoever you want to pray to, that I never have to. And so life is good. I like to travel the world surfing and snowboarding. And I don't think I'd be able to do that if I was working in an office all the time.
Yeah. Tell me about life worth chasing. Cause we talk a lot about the kind of the 3 steps in our process is helping people take control, set a course, and then creating a life worth living. So I like your life worth chasing. What does a life worth chasing mean to you?
So a few years ago, I heard this quote called "Be, Do, Have." Have you guys heard of it?
It sounds familiar, but you're going to have to give us more info.
I know Eat, Pray, Love, but I don't know if I know that one.
For sure. Well, it's a quote by Zig Ziglar, I believe, and it's called "Be, Do, Have." And essentially, most people live their lives have, do, be. And they look at somebody that can travel the world, that makes $100,000 a month passively, doesn't have to work that hard, maybe works 10, 20 hours a week on passion projects. And they're like, man, if I had that person's money, I would be like them and I would do the things that they can do. So Zig Ziglar had this quote, a mindset shift, and it's like, no, you need to be who that person is, make the lifestyle choices they make the financial decisions they make. Then you can do the things that they do. You need to do the things that they do. Then you can have that life. So I had this mindset shift a couple years ago when I was selling real estate full-time as a realtor here in San Diego. And it was about Christmas time a couple years ago. And I was sitting on my girlfriend's dad's couch, and he's a multimillionaire, has 183 employees, and he could leave work for 6 months of the year and the business would keep growing without him. And I thought to myself, man, I want to be like that. And so instead of just complaining and instead of, just guessing, I started shifting how I was doing things. And I wanted to focus on high net margin. I wanted to focus on scalability, and I want to focus on location independence. And so through my journey, I had some people that wanted to follow along. And so I started a podcast, and I'm still sharing that journey.
All right. Now, when you say location independence, what does that mean to you?
It means that I can live anywhere in the world. The idea of location independence means that I can live anywhere in the world, or you can, or your listeners can, and your business is not affected.
Yeah. So where is the number one place you would live tomorrow if you could?
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. So you love bad internet and good beaches.
Actually, exactly. Are you guys familiar with Act 20 and 22?
Yes. Yeah, we are. No, I get you. That is, and if for those who are not familiar with those, tell them about it.
So Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, but it's not a state. And so they have their own IRS, so to speak. And so in 2012, they passed a couple laws with their tax code that would bring wealthy American investors and business owners to the island through what's called Act 20 and Act 22. Act 20 is called the Export Service Act. So if you run a service business, any kind of online business, you would pay a 4% corporate tax rate. Act 22 is for capital gains, where you pay 0% on capital gains, dividends, and interest. So to wrap all that up, let's say your company nets $500,000 a year. You pay yourself a $100,000 W-2 salary off your S corp. I'm sure you guys teach all about that. And you would pay, maybe 30% on that 100K. The rest of that 400,000 net, you're paying 4% corp tax, 0 on the dividend distribution to you as the owner. And then if you flip houses, you're paying, an arm and a leg in taxes on the capital gains. You sell stocks, you sell a business. By living in Puerto Rico, you would pay 0%. So when you ask me where would I live anywhere in the world, if I just had any choice at all, it would be Bali, Indonesia. But as a U.S. citizen, I time and have the tax break without denouncing my citizenship. I have no interest in doing that. I love America, so Puerto Rico is the second option.
No doubt.
Gotcha.
Well, we've interviewed a couple of different people on our show, JLD, Joe, if you remember, David McKnight, both of which took advantage of that, moved to Puerto Rico, and are living on a much lower tax rate. And when you run a business online and you're or an investor like yourself, those are great options. I think that's really cool. I know you're going to have trouble getting your wife and 5 kids to move down there, but I think Chase and his girlfriend have that would be an ideal scenario to be a jumping off point.
Yeah. So Chase, I have a quick question for you. Going back, you didn't always think this way. You told us about the moment where you realized, hey, this guy has something that I really want to pursue, talking about your girlfriend's dad. But when did it begin? Did it start even before that, like your idea of shifting from, hey, I don't ever want this 9 to 5? You mentioned that. Was that always a part of your life, or did something change along the way?
I never had a shift away from the 9 to 5 life. It's just been instilled since I was a kid, man. I mean, my parents, they own car dealerships on the East Coast. And I just grew up in the hustle of the sales environment. I never thought about having a 9 to 5 job. Fortunately, I was able to climb the ranks in the dealerships. But for me, it was more about not just being an entrepreneur, but which path to take that was going to sort of fulfill what I wanted in life. And I had an opportunity to take over a multi-million-dollar car dealership as a family hand down. I made it through the grit, and I deserved that opportunity, but I actually turned it down. And that's when I moved to San Diego and blew all my cash for a couple of years figuring out who I was and what I wanted to do.
How did that go, by the way? Because I think there's some of us that are listening to this, me as a father, and Joey and I are building many different businesses. And I would love for my kids to get involved in those businesses at some point if they so choose. And, here I am building this business as a dad. and I'm just thinking about your parents, and they say, man, you've worked in it, you've been successful in it. Because as we were talking pre-show, you mentioned how you were making money early on as a kid, flipping cars and working inside the dealership. So your probably parents are like, man, Chase is the perfect candidate to take this over. And they go to you and they say, all right, this is what we want to do. And you're like, I don't think that's what I want to do. How'd that go over?
I was if you had to design on a whiteboard the ideal son to take over a company, I was that person. I mean, 12 years old, picking up the cigarette butts on the car lot, 14, 15 years old, washing the cars, 16 years old, picking them up from the auctions, 18 years old, selling them, 20 years old, management. I mean, I climbed the ranks. We even had competition that was trying to poach me from my own family to work to run their dealerships,
That's low down, by the way. That's pretty low down.
Very low, but that's the car business.
Yeah.
So I would say we'd have to separate the aspect of the car business from the opportunity of inheriting a business from your family. If it was a multi-hundred, plus unit real estate portfolio and it had a little bit more prestige to it, or it was something that was scalable and something I was really, really interested in, I can't say I would have turned down that opportunity. But because it was the car business, I knew that I didn't want to be in the car business forever. There's too many felons, too much liability, too many lawsuits, too much BS. And I just wasn't in love with it. I was in love with the cash and what that cash was doing for me at the time, but I was not in love with the business.
That makes sense.
Well, and then you mentioned you were like a top realtor after that. And so what made you decide not to continue to pursue that in terms of like the retail real estate agent endeavor?
So I'm a closer, man. I'm a shark. I'm a sales guy. And I like to travel. And so being a realtor, I got my license late 2015, 2016. I was a top 1% realtor in San Diego, very competitive market. I was the #1 rookie of the year at Keller Williams in Southern California. And I had the suits. I was living that Josh Altman, $1 million listing lifestyle. And I just realized about 18 to 24 months in that it wasn't me. Like I got away from my goals, and the money is something that blinded me, and I got tunnel vision. There's a lot of ways to make money. And I realized the investors I was selling deals to had more freedom. They were working less hours and they were making more money than me. So I wanted to shift before the team got too big, before ego got involved, and before I was locked down. I mean, San Diego is a beautiful place, but I don't want to be locked down forever here. If for some reason, a Monday comes around and I want to move, or this Puerto Rico opportunity comes and I want to move, I can't do that if I have a large team and I have a ton of clients. I would feel too constricted. So it was a lifestyle choice. I have nothing against realtors. I think they provide a fantastic service, but for me personally, the whole hand-holding and service needed by a realtor, along with the location dependency, just wasn't for me.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in what he was sharing there, Joe. I mean, we can see that a lot of businesses out there that people are being successful in, maybe making millions of dollars. They're not necessarily businesses, though. They're more self-employed endeavors. I mean, a real estate agency, right? That when you're running a team, you may have a lot of people handling a lot of the function, but you're the main asset in the team. And like you said, I mean, that not only leads to you being location dependent instead of independent, but at the same time, you can create a lifestyle for yourself that goes along with that income that can also make you reliant on that money over and over and over again, which then makes it, like you said, even much harder to leave.
Well, and what I keep hearing in our conversation is that you have a framework that you're working from that is built on the things that you want to have happen. And I think for so many people, they just allow things to happen to them and try to react within a framework they didn't really design themselves. And so I don't know if you're kind of nodding your head like, yeah, I agree. What are some of those things? I mean, you talk about location independence. What are some of the other things that if you had to kind of, do the framework for us, what are some of those other things that you think through when you're making decisions like this?
For sure. And no, you're spot on. And I will say, I don't have everything figured out. I mean, my business structure is still somewhat dependent with the flipping houses, but I could get up and I could leave tomorrow if I wanted to. So this is a framework I'm actively working on and I'm actively building. And I have a Google Doc that every time I have an idea or something I want to focus on, I put it in there and I just drill it into my head over and over. So to wrap it up, the framework for sure, number one is location independence. Number two is scalability through digital avenues, mainly online scalability, where it doesn't have to be done through cold calls. It doesn't have to be done through door knocking. It doesn't have to be done through people. Third is high net profit margin. So 60 to 70% net profit margin so that I can keep that cash into my war chest. And then number four is I want to enjoy the fruits of those labors. So I want to be able to make investments. I want to be able to, benefit money to causes and make an impact. And I just look at a lot of these brick and mortar businesses or real estate agencies and their net margins are 20 to 30%. Sure, they might be doing millions of dollars, but how much are you as the owner really taking home? And how many hours did you have to work to do that? And so you mentioned JLD. I look at a business like his. I mean, that guy does probably $2 million a year and he's got 3 full-time virtual assistants that cost him $4,500 a month. Why can't I have that? I can. And that's what I'm working towards.
Today's content is so awesome, man. I just wanted to make sure you knew that there's access to the Q&A from today's episode at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/community.
Yeah, you need to be a part of this movement if these are the types of things you want to learn about and be surrounded by over 3,000 other people on the same journey. Let's get back to the episode.
Let's talk about some of the things. If I'm listening to you right now and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I love the concept that Chase is talking about, what he is looking to do. There's obviously things that you're learning along the way that if I haven't started on this path, that maybe I could borrow from Chase. So what would be something that you would impart to someone who maybe has not taken some of these steps that you already have, whether that's podcasts that you're listening to, books that you're reading, courses that you're taking or have taken? What are some of those things that has helped you build this framework and make it clearer as you've gone down the road?
Yeah, I mean, podcasts for sure. I think that also it comes from purging. So like figure out like what in your life and what in your income an entrepreneur or you're working a salary job, what do you do daily that you just can't stand? I mean, there's got to be some things that you just can't stand. Is it the commute? Is it who you're working for? Is it your hours? There are so many ways to make money. It is ridiculous that why are people doing things that they don't like? To me, it's a mindset thing. To me, it's all coming down to they are either afraid or they just haven't had that self-realization moment. So once you figure out what you don't like, you got to start filling that in with what you do like. I've already listed many of the things that I like and don't like about business. And so now I have to fill those in. Podcasts have been a huge help. JLD's podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, is pretty good. Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income podcast is really good. And then, just consulting with people that I admire, people that I have on my podcast that I want to learn from how they've done it. So through podcasts and through relationships with people is how I've figured pretty much everything out. I do read, but I can't say that there's like 1 or 2 books that have just completely changed my life.
Joe, it sounds like we're doing a pretty good job. He just named a couple of people that he listens to their podcasts. We've had them on ours. Maybe we're doing something right about here.
Man, no doubt. Connecting the dots for us. I appreciate that.
For sure.
So Chase, what's next for you? I mean, you said you're on the journey. And by the way, I appreciate that about you. You're being honest about where you're at. There's some people that just try to paint a picture that's unrealistic. They're not there yet, and they're trying to talk like they are. Russ and I actually look at this podcast as a way for us to document our journey and to invite people along on the movement away from Wall Street, away from the mindset that really kind of brings people into like servitude or bondage, right? Because you need to take control. If you're not taking control, we're calling you into that, right? And to then take and set a course. You've already figured out your course. You're headed that way. What's next on the journey for you?
So for me, actually just this past week, so we are, I don't know when this is coming out, but we are at Tuesday, July 7th. So July 1st, my girlfriend and I, we made the decision that I'll be moving June 1st of next year to Puerto Rico. She'll probably spend a few months in where she's from and get some legal things worked out before she can go with me. So by June 1st of next year, I need to replace my fix and flip. I do fix and flipping and the lead generation to get those leads. I refer out to realtors and get like a 35% cut. So I'll need to replace the fix and flip income and either build up the referral income, the lead generation income, and other passive income streams. So I need to get to that to about 50 grand a month within the next 11 months. I fully believe that I can do that. And once I do that, I will be more than comfortable with leaving this area because I've completely replaced that income. And so for me, it's a money thing. It's mapping it out, mapping out the income streams, and then making that move to PR. Once I'm there, scaling up my business and building relationships in the Southeast, like in cities where you guys are, because I'm a big believer of making your money, living off 30% of it, investing the majority of the rest into hard assets that create passive income and generational wealth.
All right, so you just said something that I want to tap into because we oftentimes on this podcast will help people try to break down maybe these preconceived notions of what's possible. And for the average person right now, they're saving 5 to 6% of their income. And we oftentimes refer to a book called The Richest Man of Babylon, and he talks about living off 70%. So, sometimes when people hear us talk about saving 30% of their income, it's like, wait a second, how would I ever get to that point? Now, you just threw out the big thing where you said, no, not live off 70%, save 30, live off 30 and save 70. Talk a little bit about that. Like, how is that possible? And what are things that you have found that have allowed you to be able to do that?
Okay. So first it comes with, we are trained in the American society to get into debt. Debt is very easy to obtain. Car loans, house loans, all of that stuff. So for me, it's all about how can I do the opposite of what the middle class is trained to do in America and do what the wealthy do. And that is the only thing that you own in your name is cash producing assets. And everything else, you rent or you lease or it's short term. So for me, instead of buying the house that I live in, I rent where I live because I like moving, and I invest in rental properties that completely cover that payment. Cars, I've had all the BMWs, but I go to the auctions and I buy them for cheap. I drive them for 6 months and I sell them. I make a little bit of a profit. So I never am in debt on my vehicles. Now I don't know if we can cuss, but I don't give a crap much about cars. So now I drive a 2016 Lexus hybrid that I bought salvage for $13,000. It's got 30,000 miles on it. And I don't have a payment. So I live not frugal where I don't have a good life. I mean, I go to Bali, I have nice restaurants, I, shop, I have a maid, I mean, all kinds of stuff that people would enjoy, but I'm calculated. I don't blow it on things just to keep up with the Joneses. And I think that's really important. And using an app like Personal Capital or Mint and really knowing your finances. I bet you most people, maybe not listening to your podcast because they're educated from your podcast, but most people in America have no idea what their net worth is. They have no idea what their assets and liabilities are. We have to treat our personal life and our expenses like a P&L, like a business. And if we're not doing that, we don't even know what percentage we're at. And so for me, I don't want to work past 40. So I have a huge goal at 40. So I got a decade to get there. And, it takes me saving 70%, but not just saving, putting it in the right places where I'm creating income off of that, not just cash in the bank.
Right. Well, and I think that's important. It's about money that you can live off of. That's cash flow. Most people buy liabilities that create more expenses upon those liabilities instead of buying assets that produce cash flow that help pay for everything. So that's really smart, Chase. These are fundamental things in order to be successful, to be a great entrepreneur. I love the way that you said we should think of our personal finances as a P&L. And, one of the things that we have people come into our community, we actually have a scorecard for them. And it's just a fancy Excel document, but it is really a P&L. It is the balance sheet as well as an income statement that people can have personally to help them just track their monthly numbers, because I think it's important. If you don't know what those are, it's going to be really hard to get clear as to where you want to go, because you don't have that destination point of where that starting point, I guess.
Yeah. By the way, go ahead.
Can I mention one more thing about how to save I think what's more important is how can you live off 30% than how can you save 70%. And they're two different things. And the only way to live off the 30% is first figure out what are you spending your money on that you just don't need, doesn't make sense. All right. You have to increase your income to be able to do that.
Right.
All right. So, the amount of money that I make is like the minimum of, a professional ball player. And so I'm able to live off that 30%. But that's because I've made calculated choices along the way. And so you have to increase your income. So if you have a W-2 job, you work a 9 to 5, what's your 6 to 10? What's your Saturday? What's your Sunday? All it takes is 1 or 2 years of hustling after work and on the weekends to completely explode your income. All it takes is 6 months to even replace your W-2 income. So, it's not easy, but it's really simple, and it's increase your income. And then make sure you're living off that 30%, or start with 50%. But the people that do it best, they're at 25 to 30%.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. And if you're listening, and we just talked about the scorecard and the community, if you're not a part of our community, you are absolutely missing out on more and more resources and the network. Get rid of the limiting beliefs, the limiting network, and the limiting resources and education that we've all kind of come into this journey with, and join other people on the journey. You can go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/community, or just on our main webpage. You can go there, or you can actually go in the app store and just search Wealth Without Wall Street, and you can download the app on your phone and stay connected to all the courses on budgeting we've talked about. All this is in there. Please join us on that journey. And by the way, Chase, this has been really good for us to hear your story, to know that you're on the path, and really appreciate you sharing your insights with our audience today.
100%. I'm enjoying it, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
And by the way, we're creating a special link if you guys want to be able to follow Chase on this journey. We're going to be able to link to his resources. You can go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/life worth chasing.
All right. So thanks again for listening to this episode, and we will catch you on the next one.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand, so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.